Jay, I hope you had a nice weekend, a nice week. I did, and I pray you did too, and hope you have some more of them. Now, once again, I ask you to remember our retired Vincentians in Perryville, Missouri, especially those in need of healing, and then also friends of the mission who need some of God's help. And so please remember Bill and Brian and Clarence, Leonard and Ralph and Stan. And also remember Allison and Karen, Louise and Loretta, and Nancy and Sharon and Pat. Please remember them in your prayers. Today, we celebrate a feast of John the Baptist. And even the church calls it the Passion of John the Baptist. And I always think about, the life of somebody who really just pointed to the Lord. He's someone to really to follow, because it was never about him. And I was thinking, Sunday's liturgy, where Jesus, in the whole liturgy, was talking about humility, being humble. And if there's any trait in John the Baptist that stood out was that. Because it was never about him. He was always one who was pointing to the Lord. Somebody else is greater than me. And I think that's a real sign of humility, that if we would always point to God. I laugh a lot because I think part of the human condition today is, if things go right, I take credit. If things go wrong, I blame God. And it ought to be the other way around. It ought to be, that we just give God more credit. I was talking to a friend of mine about, success in business. And people who are very successful in business, they ought to be in church more than anybody. They ought to be grateful to God, because not only were they lucky, which I believe, but God was good to them and needed God's help. Things don't happen in this world without God. Maybe that's my faith, but hey, I got to share with you what I believe. And so John the Baptist, he showed that sign of humility, where it was not about him, it was about God. So, it's like, how important are you in life? If you're pointing to the Lord, yeah, you are. And if God gets the credit, so be it. And therefore, we need to be a little more grateful. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about this story. These two kids that were arguing about their teacher, And like little kids will do, and we're just back in school now, and kids talking about their teacher. They got the best teacher, mine is the best. and if you overheard the conversation, it was like, well, he's better than the president. He's better than the king. He's better than the greatest athlete ever. The other kid says to him, is he better than the Pope? No, he's still young yet. I think, we're in our church, we only know the Pope is somebody who's old. We don't know if a Pope was young. But anyway, my reflection about John is humility and how he pointed to the Lord. That was his life. And what a horrible death. He died because he taught what he believed was right. And a horrible death. Being beheaded, because he talked about the law and he talked about the Herod doing wrong. And I think of a lot of the saints who who lived that way. Their life was one where they stood up for the truth. They pointed to God. And the last piece of humility is being quick to say thank you and being quick to say I'm sorry. A humble person admits mistakes. And I think that's a real big part of that virtue. And then the humble person seeks forgiveness. The humble person knows about what it means to be a child of God and points to God. And so today, I just hope that as we celebrate the feast of John the Baptist, that we would be encouraged to be somebody who points to God by the way I live, by the way I talk, by the way I treat people, that they could conclude, here's a child of God. Here's somebody who lets us see God. And that's the humble person. And so it's not about singing their own song and their own tune. It's about singing God's tune, about wanting to make God present, about being grateful to God, seeking his forgiveness when I'm not. And so that's my reflection for today, and I hope that we get the grace and the strength to be humble, to be grateful, and to point to God. Once again, we always finish our time together saying the mission prayer. Got a couple special intentions. When you say the prayer today, I'd like you to remember Sue and Mary and Bobby. I'd like you to say your prayer today, thinking of them. Divine Savior, transform me into yourself. May my hands be your hands. May my tongue be your tongue. Grant that every faculty of my body may serve only to glorify you. Above all, transform my soul and all its powers, that my memory, my will, and my affections may be the memory, the will, and the affections of you. I pray you to destroy in me all that is not of you. Grant that I may live but in you, and by you, and for you, and that I may truly say with St. Paul, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. God bless for joining. I sure hope you check our website out, especially on Wednesdays when there's a written reflection, and hope to see you again next week. Be safe and enjoy.